Sean,
Mike?
what is this? A crossover episode? Yowza bobowza. You did it right this time. Yay, Sean.
I did it right this time.
Hello,
Please applaud
everybody. Welcome to What Is This, a crossover episode, the Bojack Horseman podcast, starring the Squid Boys, me and Sean, Gonbu for life.
Gonbu for life.
I'm Mike. That's Sean.
I'm Sean, yeah.
Yeah,
Hi,
he's
me.
over there. I'm right here.
I'm here.
He's
Underwater.
somewhere on the East Coast. I'm somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah,
Location undisclosed. But we're here to talk about Bojack Horseman.
I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location.
Yes. From my bunker.
Yeah, for my own safety.
For my own safety. Edvis is coming for me.
Oh, no.
Anyway, this is, we're covering episode 4 of season 3. Fish Out of Water. 9.6 on IMDb. This is one of the most lauded episodes of Bojack Horseman that exists, and it's one of the most unique and interesting. We're going to do our normal bits, and then we're going to kind of cover it a different way than we typically cover episodes, because it's not really recapable, because it's it's in many ways, Sean, an old-style cartoon.
Yeah.
They took an adult cartoon and made an episode where it's a Looney Tune, basically.
Yeah. No dialogue. Which I think is, I don't know. Do you want to get our bits out of the way before we start talking about,
Yeah, let's get our bits out of the way. This episode released on July 22nd, 2016.
Oh, no.
And here's some things that happened. A man shoots and kills 9 people at the Olympia shopping mall in Munich, Germany, and then kills himself.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton announces Virginia Senator Tim Kaine as her vice presidential running mate.
Tim Kaine. I don't know why every time Tim Kaine
gets you every time.
He does. It's just, you guys remember Tim Kaine?
Yeah.
You know what the funniest part of Tim Kaine is? I challenge anybody to tell me what he's done since the 2016 election.
He could be dead. I don't know.
I haven't heard about Tim Kaine.
He could have died.
He like, not to get political or anything, but he won the vice presidency.
Right.
He won the popular vote. And nobody could tell you what he's done since.
No. The number 1 song in the UK and the US was One Dance by Drake, featuring WizKid and Kyla. Drake, again, known for a long penis.
Yep.
Thomas Sutherland, American hostage, Lebanon. An academic, died at 85. They put Lebanon in brackets, so I feel like I have to say it like that.
Okay.
Ursula Franklin, German-born Canadian physicist, educator, and activist, developed archaeometry, dies at 94.
I think that this is a good episode to look up what archaeometry is again.
You think so?
Well, because...
Go ahead, take a look.
I don't know.
Or do you want me to
how
do
long
it?
this episode's going to be. I'm looking it up.
I'm doing it too.
Oh, it's the application of various sciences to archaeology.
No.
That doesn't seem right.
That's not what.
That doesn't seem right.
This says archaeometry is a formal field of study whose practitioners apply techniques and approaches from the physical, chemical, biological, and earth sciences and engineering to address archaeological questions and problems. That just doesn't. I don't understand.
So are they saying that like archaeology didn't exist before this?
I think what they're saying is archaeology existed. Yeah. Archaeology existed,
but it was bullshit.
But it was just a bunch of dumbasses poking at bones. And then Ursula Franklin said, "Hey, why don't we apply some actual science to it?" That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, that's also what I'm getting. Man, crazy important person.
And then finally, Japan's Funai Electric announced they will manufacture the world's last video cassette this month.
And we determined last time that they'll kill anybody that tries to do so after that.
Yes, the Yakuza will come for you.
Yeah.
If you try to.
Kiryu will come and kill you.
Yes. So this like I said, this is a 9.6 on IMDb, which is a
Yeah.
pretty high for a BoJack Horseman episode. And Edvis, our review guy, contracted review guy,
Yeah.
Edvis 1997,
Field reporter.
gives it 9 out of 10 stars.
Okay.
And says, considered all previous episodes of this season, I thought it's going to be awful, but this episode really surprised me in a good way. I really enjoyed watching BoJack with Little Seahorse, and the ending was obs epic. Not obviously, obs.
Yeah.
OBVS epic.
Thank you, Edvis.
Thank you, Edvis, out in the field. We appreciate you, Edvis.
Back
Edvis,
to
I
you
want to
at
talk
the,
to you. Edvis, if you're listening, come on the show.
Please email us.
Email us. Yeah, I don't actually want you on the show. I just want you to email Anyway.
Well, I think some of the mystery would be ruined, you know?
Yeah.
It's like never meet your heroes.
I don't think I want to talk to Edvis. I just want...
Yeah, never meet your heroes, you know?
Simply text correspondence between me and Edvis.
Yeah.
So
I watched this episode of BoJack Horseman.
That's a good start for our podcast. That's good.
I did watch the episode, and I immediately was like, I got to go see what people said about this when it came out, because I thought this was pretty excellent. And I think like where I want to start this conversation is I saw some pushback to the praise from people that I don't think understood the praise. Because a lot of people were praising the fact that this episode doesn't have any dialogue and the way that it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a lot of people being like, hey, that's hardly a novel idea, right? Which they're right. Like, dialogueless episodes of cartoons is definitely not a new thing. I think what makes this episode so special is the sound design in lieu of all the dialogue.
Sean.
Right?
Sean.
Yeah.
Sean.
Yeah.
You are so right.
Right? It's the sound design.
You are so right. So, Jesse Novak, who has done the whole show so far, this is his magnum opus.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine, like, I'd be very curious to hear what our friend Fabio thinks about this, because I mean, not even just from the sound design point, but also, like you're saying, the music. I mean, the music in this episode is incredible.
So when this episode came out, Sean, I used to listen to this episode's soundtrack on Spotify.
I believe
all the time. It was in my Spotify Wrapped that year. Like it would be like a Fall Out Boy song, a Taking Back Sunday song, a Coed and Camry song, and then this random like the music in and to your point, the sound design as well. Like obviously that those go hand in hand, and I don't know if Jesse's fully responsible for that. But the actual score to this episode makes it work. I think without that, it would be kind of not boring, but it would be not as interesting, I guess. So it gets boring, yeah. But like it just fits everything. And it fits in it's kind of like, you know, like we said, Looney Tunesy from the standpoint of how it all fits in, but then like there's little wrinkles, like there's a point where it fits in the BoJack chords, right?
Yeah.
Which we can talk about later, but it's like it's so good how they do it, and sad moments are and I know I'm just describing how a soundtrack works, like I get that, but it's just really good. It's really well done. I guess, you know, not to recap the episode, but the episode's basically 2 parts. Well, 3 technically before the cold open is Anna Spanakovita explaining to him what this is, and him trying to get on not the plane, but the
submarine,
that brings him down to this world. It's a pretty funny concept, and they've touched on it a little bit in other episodes, but basically there's a whole nother like nation of animals that live underwater, right? And they treat it kind of like Japan, right? Just slightly. There's a little bit of like Mexico in there. Like they just kind of treat it like this is a foreign place, right?
Yeah, I think this is also possibly the show's world building at its best. Because even characters like who's the director? What's the director's name?
Oh, I don't remember his name.
But the catfish guy.
The catfish guy, yeah.
Like he as a character, I feel totally changed to me when I saw him in this environment.
Right.
Right? Like all these characters that we've seen, these kind of aquatic characters that we've seen up until now, to me, because of this expansion of the world, feel totally different almost because of like we see them in their natural element in a way. In a way that I think is just genius. I do want to touch on a few things from the cold open before we move on.
Okay.
Because there's just some lines that I really liked from it. First of all, Bojack proving that he is us. He is the everyday man. He says, the French smell and I hate them.
Yes. Yes, they do.
And I mean, I've never resonated more with Bojack.
Yeah, no, he's right. He also at one point says he hates fish while sitting next to a fish, and then when the fish starts to like make noise at him, he says, "Hey, no habla fish." Just like the most racist thing I can think of.
He also says, "I haven't been underwater since my mother tried to drown me in the bathtub when I was 22."
Yeah, that's quite a line. 22, which, like, by the way.
Yeah, it starts out funny, and then it just gets funnier with 22.
Yeah. This episode also just, like, the animal-based jokes absolutely carry this episode, you know? Because there's
the sardines?
Dialogue. The sardines, the schools of
Dude,
fish. Like,
constantly, the sardines just... All I could think of is, oh, look at all those sardines packed in.
Yep. The electric eel flight attendant who shocks him, but has a taser to do it. I was all I could think about when watching that part was like that he would never get away with this now. They'd remove him.
Oh yeah.
They wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't leave him on that ship, on that sub, but
yeah.
So that there's that part, and then there's the part where he's like at the movie festival trying to like fit in and like communicate with people, and he cannot. And then he gets out of like he goes out in the booties kind of, and there's a little seahorse situation. So I guess we should talk about the first part first, right?
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of like a thing throughout the whole episode. Thematically, it's just like Bojack being unable to communicate with people.
Yeah, and
it's really interesting.
That's his life, whether he's underwater or not.
But I think what's interesting about this episode is the other thing that I didn't really think about until I had to go back and look at reactions to the episode. But I think maybe for like one of the first times, see a sober Bojack.
Yeah. Yeah, he's sober because he can't drink.
Yep. He can't drink. He can't smoke. Like, there's nothing affecting him.
Right.
And I think what's so genius about this setting then is at the moment when he would be most capable of communicating with the outside world, he can't.
Right. No, for sure.
Right?
100%.
Like, this is even talking to, trying to talk to the other director that got fired.
Kelsey Jennings.
Thank you. Like, he wants to fix that relationship. He wants to be proactive and not just hide from his problems, which is his normal MO. And the setting that he's found himself, in, mixed with, as we learn at the end of the episode, his own self-sabotage, which is also very on brand for Bojack, is keeping him from being able to communicate with these people. And it is self-sabotage in a way, because when you think about it, like, look, if Bojack was a better person, he probably would know that he could do this.
Right.
If he paid attention,
right,
before he did things, he probably would know that, like, hey, I can talk.
Well, and they set that up at the beginning of the episode when Anna's like, hey, you know what a thumbs up means, right? And he goes, yes, I know what a thumbs up means, but it means something different in their culture.
Yeah,
and he just doesn't care to learn. And if he would have, he might have known that there was a button on the helmet to talk to people.
Yeah.
So, no, you're 100% right. He tries to, write a bunch of notes to Kelsey, and they're hilarious. Like, and the one he settles on is like the worst one.
Well,
it's like, hey, Kelsey.
At the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning, because then he writes a good one at the end. But at the beginning, and then he turns around, she's not there. But he writes, hey, Kelsey. Sorry you got fired. That really sucks. Love Bojack. P.S. Are we cool? And he's like,
Yeah.
that's the note I'm gonna give her. And it's
Yeah.
like, what the hell? That's like the worst one you wrote. So he's
Well, and I'd say on the note aspect, the episode does something so smart that I was thinking of the whole time. The whole time I was watching, as he's writing all the notes, I'm like, I'm thinking I'm going to apply cartoon logic to this, but this shouldn't work, right? Like he's underwater,
right,
writing with ink, like
Right.
it's gonna wash off.
right,
And we see at the end of the episode that the episode goes, no, you're right to be thinking about that. We're not just gonna cartoon logic this.
right, right.
You know,
They walk this line, especially this episode, between the cartoon logic and the real world logic that they normally live in, right?
yeah.
And because later we have the him getting swallowed by giant sea anemones and like destroying a giant taffy factory by just
God,
making the
yeah.
buttons go. You know what I mean? Like, but then
It
you
really
also,
is like a Looney Tunes, like Tom and Jerry kind of.
It is, and that's what's so brilliant about it is they got a bunch of adults who liked the edgy adult cartoon show to watch a Looney Tunes episode in 2016 and praise it.
Which, like, I think the key of that is like they made it so individual, not only in terms of what we said about the sound design and the music, but also in that this might be the weirdest episode of BoJack that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Like the actual content of the episode, what happens is insane.
Yeah.
It is maybe not the drug episode. That episode was pretty crazy in season 1.
Right.
But like, I mean, like moving on, I guess. Like, there's one more thing I do, like just a joke that I saw when they were when he's writing those notes and he's looking around at the people in the lobby. I liked do the right thing too, do the more right thing. A Spike Lee joint.
Yeah. That one's good. The movie that Kelsey Jennings directed is Billie Jean King Is Not My Lover, and I think that's a funny one.
I like that.
There's one, I don't know if you saw it, and they're gonna touch on it more in other episodes, but it's on the bus as he's getting off the bus. There's an ad for a movie called The Nazi That Played Yahtzee.
Oh,
starring
this
George
came up
Clooney.
before. This isn't the first time that this has come up.
No, it's gonna come up more. George Clooney is gonna exist, and it's really funny because most of the time they do like that's George Clooney, right?
Yeah.
They don't really change names, but for some reason with George Clooney they do George Clooners, and it's really funny.
I feel like you don't want to say George Clooney is in a movie called The Nazi Who Played Yahtzee.
Yeah, but I think this show normally would, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a bridge too far for the beloved George Clooney.
I mean,
who
he's
ruined that.
starring in a movie. They're not saying he's a Nazi that played Yahtzee. He's just starring in a movie.
Yeah, the word association is there, though.
Yeah,
you know?
Oh, for sure. And maybe that's on purpose. So, so that's another movie title I liked. So he tries to chase down Kelsey. He gets pushed onto a bus by a bunch of sardines and falls asleep and ends up in the middle of nowhere. And the only other person on the bus is a male seahorse who needs to give birth.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So it's just this. It's like there's a shift in the episode, right? And so he helps the seahorse give birth to 6 seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
Guy just casually gets off the bus. Bojack gets thrown off the bus because the bus. This is not how buses work. Like they don't just get to like a far out area and then go, nope, time to be done. They usually go back to where the bus is housed before going out of service.
That is how cartoon buses work.
That is 100% how cartoon buses work. That is a
very cartoon like plot point.
Yes, it is 100% how cartoon buses work. But that's how it works here too.
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts walking back towards civilization because it's the last bus and he needs to be there by 8:00 for the premiere of Secretariat at this film festival, which I don't know if we mentioned why he was there, but that's why. Secretariat is being shown at this film festival.
He's not allowed to go to Cannes because he said that he hates the French and that they smell, and he's not allowed to go to Sundance because Robert Redford hates him.
Right, exactly. So this is the only one he can do.
Yeah.
So he starts walking, and then he hears a noise, and there's a little seahorse on his back, one of the baby seahorses. And it's again, we're not going to break it down frame by frame or anything.
Yeah.
But early on, he just is very much wants nothing to do with it, as you'd imagine. He tries to leave the horse there with just the male seahorse book, and and tries to give him a cigarette at one point, like just horrible, like has no idea how to deal with a small child, right?
Yeah. So this is when a pit formed in my stomach, and I was unsure. Of how this episode was going to proceed.
So you were nervous that he was going to kill the baby.
Wasn't nervous that he was going to kill the baby. I'm very sensitive towards small children in media. I don't know. You know how like when you see a dog show up and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Did nothing better happen to that dog? I'm the same way with little children in media.
Okay.
So when this kid showed up, I was like, okay, this is either going to work out, or, knowing Bojack Horseman, this kid is going to get left out stranded in the middle of nowhere, or he's going to accidentally end up like something terrible could very well happen to this kid. And so I was anxious the entire episode, worried about this child. I'm being completely honest with you.
So, I get that. I think Bojack letting something happen to an innocent child is maybe a bridge too far for his character, and that not that the point of Bojack Horseman is to redeem Bojack Horseman in any way, but you have to have this balance of you want to root for a character like that to get better and do better, and if they do something, like if he just straight up murders somebody,
I definitely don't. I guess I kind of realized that he wasn't going to do anything bad. I was more worried that this kid was going to be used to add more trauma to him.
Right. And I mean, in a way, that's kind of what happened.
It still does.
Not
but at
as
least
severe as you were talking.
Yeah. At least the kid is safe in the end.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I was worried he would try to help the kid and something bad would happen. So I was very happy that is not what happened.
Yeah. So they end up, the kid's hungry and starts trying to suck on him because that's what babies do. And so he finds a store where Mr. Peanut Butter, we forgot to mention this, they do this funny Japanese style commercial for seahorse formula. And Mr. Peanut Butter's the spokesperson for it. And it's real funny because you always hear about celebrities over here doing Japanese commercials, and they're just nuts. And so they kind of play off that. And I thought it was pretty funny. Also, they were all three television program things he saw were pretty good. There's Naked and Filleted, where this guy's trying to kill naked fish.
Yeah.
And what was the first one? Fuck.
I can't remember.
I know. I'm so naked and filleted pilled right now that I don't.
It was good too.
Yeah, it was good. I just don't remember it right now.
It's just Naked and Filleted fucking threw me off.
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe someone will yell at me in the comments about it. But that one was good too. But anyway, so there's a standee outside this convenience store of Mr. Peanut Butter holding a baby seahorse, and it's so funny just to see that kind of thing. Bojack doesn't have the currency.
Yeah.
Which is shells, I believe, and so he has to kind of steal the formula, and then we get this Tom and Jerry-esque chase sequence between him and the shark that runs the convenience store.
It reminded me of there's a SpongeBob episode where they're trying to sell chocolate, and they go to this guy's house and they're like, "Hey man, you want to buy some chocolate?" And the guy just goes, "Chocolate? Chocolate?" And then they're like, "Okay, let's get the fuck out of here. This guy's weird." And he chases them throughout the rest of the episode. They'll just kind of go off and they'll be doing something else, and then he'll show up and be like, "Chocolate!" And I don't know why, but it made me think of that with this shark. It just kept showing up places, chasing them.
And it's funny. I meant to say this earlier. You bring up SpongeBob, but when he's just out in the middle of nowhere, it looks just like SpongeBob looks.
It's the The episode I thought of specifically is Rock Bottom.
Okay.
There's an episode where I don't remember how he gets down there, but he ends up at the bottom of like a ravine or a valley in the under the ocean. And it has the vibes of this episode where like there's nobody there. It's darker than the show normally is in terms of lighting. It's very much like, I think they do the same bus gag where they're like, we got to get on the bus, but the bus is out of service.
Right. Yeah.
So I very much was thinking of that episode.
SpongeBob's
as well.
probably one of the most like important cartoons of the last 20 years, and so it makes sense that they would, take some inspiration from this.
And I think there's that, and I also think SpongeBob is just like, especially for people my age, so culturally relevant, and they did everything that it's kind of hard to not find something.
SpongeBob's really the Simpsons of this era, isn't it?
I think it is the Simpsons of my generation, to be honest. Like, I think it's like there was just so many episodes and they did so many weird things and it's so like seared into our brains that it is really easy to go, oh yeah, it's like when SpongeBob did this one thing,
Right. Simpsons did it. Simpsons did it.
Simpsons did it. But in this episode, it was more like that because of the underwater setting.
Oh, for sure. So, they the shark chase sequence. He gets away from by going like in this underground cavern, and they have this like really long bouncing on sea mushrooms kind of sequence. That's really like the sound it makes. It's really well animated. It's really funny. Like there's
the light is really good. I think I like the light. Like when it's when they're bouncing on them, they light up or whatever.
There's a part where, the seahorse is just having a great old time bouncing on everything, and Bojack just keeps getting griefed. And there's the scene where he falls into a hole, and then in the background, you just see him getting launched between holes. And the way it's animated is he's just like flailing.
Yeah.
It's so funny. He gets caught in like an enemy, and then like gets out, and his like coat's all like disheveled and fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's so like we don't see that often with him. We don't see like the cartoon gags with him typically.
Yeah.
And so it's a really well done sequence. It's really funny. And then they do like the Willy Wonka fizzy lifting drink deal. Where you can see throughout this, you can see Bojack's kind of being endeared to this child. The child's like hugging his leg, and he's like, okay, I got to protect this kid. You can see like that relationship forming. And then they go in this fizzy lifting drink thing, and Bojack, the kid lets go, and Bojack swims after him, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to just letting him go. But then his helmet gets stuck in the fan blade, so they're fine. And they end up in the taffy factory that the seahorse dad works at. And so Bojack's trying to find him, and there's just all these gags with the fucking taffy factory and Bojack. Because he can't communicate with people, it makes it... Because the kid's caught in like the machine, right? And he could just walk up to the guy running the machine and go, hey, there's a kid caught in there. And that guy would stop it. But he can't do that.
Yeah.
So he like fights the guy and then just starts bashing buttons. And then
the kid at one point in there gets a sugar high as well. And like his eyes get all like it's like pure distilled sugar or something.
Right.
And it's very funny.
Yeah, it's very funny. They get caught in the taffy.
And there's like this
the fish start chasing him, and they're all and they do this like really cool zoom up thing where it's like, oh my god, they're getting so close, and then it zooms out, and they're all just moving so slow through this taffy. And then he's going to escape, and he's on a windowsill, and in your head you're like, why doesn't he just swim? They're underwater. And he falls off the windowsill, and then he's floating, and he realizes, oh, I can just swim. This is underwater. It's just a really well done, goofy Looney Tunes ass sequence. The music's really good as he swims away, and then the taffy thing kind of implodes with taffy, and it's just all really well done. And I know we're talking about it, but like if you haven't watched this episode for some reason, you're listening, you have to watch it. Like it's just we can't describe it well enough.
I would even say, like, I might go on Discord after this and be like, hey, guys, if you weren't listening to Bojack because you're, like, not interested or whatever, go watch this episode.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you could watch it on its own pretty well. And, like, there's no big plot twists. There's no, like, it kind of relies upon you knowing that Bojack is a sad sack of shit, but that's about it.
Right.
You know, like, and it's just a very impressive episode.
It is.
I don't know. I would definitely say, like, if you're just listening to this because you support us or whatever, which I don't know who would be doing that, but if for some reason there is somebody, go watch this episode.
Anybody I've heard doing that, they've watched the show before.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But
like Panda, I know Panda listens, but she's not watching Bojack, but she's seen it before.
Yeah, I would just say, like, go watch this episode. Watch this episode either for the first time or again, because man, it's good. And it does end up getting sad because, like, he ends up getting to the house and delivering this baby to the seahorse, and like Bojack has always desired like a connection, right? He has such I saw somebody say the ultra rare daddy and mommy issues.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
like
he's both.
He's got both. He just wants somebody to love him unconditionally. Like, that is really what Bojack wants at his core. And he kind of starts to get that with this child. And then obviously, you know, he has to give the child back. And it's so depressing because the kid doesn't even look at him when he leaves.
Right.
Like, he tries to wave goodbye. And obviously, like, it's a kid, you know? Like, kid doesn't owe him anything, you know? Like, but it's this moment of, like, this is exactly what he was looking for. And it, you know, it meant so much more to him than it did to this child that can't, you know, comprehend these thoughts or feelings or,
right.
or ideas, you know?
And that's when they played the famous Bojack chords, the sad chords, right? And you're like, oh, you know, like, that sucks. And the guy tries to offer him food and tries to offer him money, and he doesn't want to, you know, and he leaves.
Yeah.
But when he, after he leaves, he's in the taxi and he's writing the final note to Kelsey. And I actually have the quote here so we don't screw it up. But it's, Kelsey, in this terrifying world, all we have are the connections we make. I'm sorry you got fired. I'm sorry I never called you after. And that's what he writes on there. And then he gets to the premiere and no one's there because it's 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the hotel where there's a party, actually. And then apparently Secretariat did well. And our director friend hooks him up with nicotine patches and suppository alcohol.
It also kind of, it looks like in the end, at least, business-wise, it works out for Bojack. He doesn't seem to, nobody's mad at him.
Nobody's like, hey, you weren't at the premiere.
There. Yeah. They're all kind of just like, hey, man, look, it did great. Like, look at us. We're stars. Here, shove this can of vodka up your ass, you know? Like,
right, this cartridge of vodka. So he's sitting there. One of my probably my favorite animal gag happens here, where there's a guy playing a piano and there's a dolphin in like an evening gown and and she has a mic, and then it's just the most horrifying dolphin noises come from her. Like, you think it's gonna be, oh, it's gonna sound nice, and it's and it's fucking awful. That I've seen this episode a handful of times over the years, and I always forget about that, and it always kills me. I think it's so funny. But Bojack's hanging with some ladies, and he notices Kelsey leaving, so he tries to run her down. He swims after the taxi cab, which he's apparently a very strong swimmer, because he catches up and stops, and he hands her the note. But like you said earlier, the ink is all run, and it doesn't make any sense, so she just kind of moves on.
Yeah.
And he's standing there, and then this douchebag walks up, and you hear him go, "Hey, buddy, get out of the way!"
Yeah.
And you look, and you can see there is a button on the helmet that can speak, and Bojack does it. You gotta be kidding me! And that's the end of the episode.
Like, and it's made even more depressing to me. And I didn't think about this at first, but again, I after this episode, it was just so good that I was like, I need to see what people thought about this when it came out. Somebody pointed out Kelsey could totally have talked to him at any point.
Yeah, she wasn't interested.
You know, like, and that's what's even more tragic about it is she totally knew that she could have hit the button. Like, she sees him struggling and does nothing.
So,
and like, to be, it's not on her to have to do anything.
Right.
Like if she doesn't want to do anything, she's totally valid to not do anything. But it just adds another layer of like, oh man, Bojack.
Right. Right. And like, but it is also like in pattern with how Bojack is, where it's like, he could have reached out to her way before this.
Oh yeah.
He only
Yeah, yeah,
wants
yeah.
to do it because she's there. Right.
Yeah. And he's scared of having a run-in.
Right. He only wants to do it because he's there and he feels bad about it in that moment. He could have it's been a period of time. He could have called. He could have done a lot of things. But he didn't. And that's the real issue. And that's I think if he calls and talks to her, it's the same thing that happened with Herb, right?
Yeah.
He didn't help Herb and Herb got fired, and then he just didn't talk to Herb because of his guilt. And then Herb's like, "Hey man, I could have used you to be my friend,
Yeah.
regardless of that. I didn't need you to quit your job, but this one, something Bojack did actively got her fired. They did
Mhm.
together, and he didn't reach out again, so he hasn't learned from any of his mistakes.
He really just just out of convenience to himself.
Right. And so hopefully we'll start to see a Bojack that learns from these lessons, but, I'm not going to promise anything.
I was going to say season 3 of 6. I'm not holding my breath for anything too soon. Yeah,
Yeah, that's probably correct. That's probably the correct answer.
I'm not holding my breath.
But yeah, this is
Things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yeah, 100%. This is an incredible episode though. And like we talked about earlier, the music, the sound design, the animation, it's just a fun watch. And yes, there's some. It wouldn't be BoJack without some heart pulling and tugging on your heartstrings a little bit. But it's just an incredible episode of television. I saw someone say the most incredible animated episode of television in the last 20 years or something. I don't know about that, but I just think it's really good. And I agree with what you said. If you haven't watched it. If you haven't watched BoJack at all, maybe watch this episode and see how you feel.
Yeah. I just think sound design, music, like we talked about, and I really can't, as somebody that reads a lot of fantasy, I'm big on world building and stuff. The world building in this episode is really good.
Yeah.
Just kind of introducing this whole new way of life in BoJack, and I feel like I've got a really good handle on it by the end.
Yeah.
It's only 20-something minutes, and it's excellent, I think.
Agreed. All right. Should we do the categories? I don't know that we could do all of them, but
yeah. So we've got favorite animal-based joke.
Mine's the dolphin lounge singer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just makes me like the idea that anytime you see that in any kind of movie or show, it's like this beautiful voice and it's this like sexy thing, and then she just like like that just absolutely kills me every time. So that's gonna be mine. But there are so many good ones in this episode that it kind of carries the episode. The amount of cool animal-based jokes, because like you said, we're in this new world, basically.
Yeah, I've got it's my favorite animal-based joke and my favorite bit overall are the same. It's probably the sardines.
Yeah, the sardines are really good.
It's really good, wordplay too. I loved it. What was your favorite bit overall throughout the episode?
I said this when they're in the caves and just the animation of BoJack just doing the Wile E. Coyote ass shit.
Yeah.
Just really made me happy. Really, really brought me back to those days when you would watch those Looney Tunes and all that,
Mm-hmm. And then favorite quote. I've got mine. My favorite quote was, "I haven't been underwater since my mother tried to drown me in the bathtub when I was 22."
I think I gotta go with the note he writes to Kelsey.
Probably that's good as well. There's something about the when I was 22 that killed me.
That's a good joke. That's a good joke. It's a good quote, and there's not many to choose from. But in this terrifying world, all we have are the connections we make. I'm sorry you got fired. I'm sorry I never called you ever. Because that's probably the most emotionally impactful of the episode. In an episode where there's not very many.
It's yeah. There's a big in the books I like to read, there's a big scene where that is essentially said nearly verbatim, where they're like, the only thing that matters is the moments that we spend together, our connection. is what they talk about. So it's the kind of same idea as what Bojack is saying.
Okay. All right.
I do just a few like loose ends that we didn't like bring up. Two like bits that I thought were hilarious. I like when he tries to give the cigarette to the kid to smoke to calm down,
Right.
and then the baby eats it.
Yeah, and then spits it out because
yeah,
gross.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I loved all the eyes appearing out of the darkness, and it's setting up like, oh, this is horrifying, and then the light shows up, and it's just this dude like sipping some juice, and then he just walks away.
Yeah, that was a good bit too. I also like the bit where they're by the billboard and they think they're safe from the shark, and then the shark comes through the billboard.
Yeah.
Just classic Looney Tunes ass shit.
Well, because the billboard is also like a shark.
Right.
Like, you know, it's because it's like it's layered. Because at first you see it and it looks like there's a shark watching them from within like the kelp.
Yep.
And then they're like, oh no, it's just a billboard. And then the shark comes through the billboard.
So funny. So
that's really good.
Yeah, just a great episode. And I mean, I think we could sit here for another 20 minutes and talk about all the bits we liked about it, but you should go watch it. Yeah, you should go watch it instead of that. So next episode, wow, my voice cracked. Next episode of Bojack Horseman is called
Previously
Love
on Bojack
and or Marriage. And it has an 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb.
Okay.
While Todd and Bojack crash a rehearsal dinner, Diane gets high with a client.
Oh, no. Princess
Carolyn goes on a series of blind dates.
This feels like it's going to be a classic Bojack funny episode.
So I will tell you, I remember the Diane part.
Uh-huh.
I don't have any recollection of the rest of this episode.
Okay.
So I don't know. I can't tell you if it's good or not.
It's just every individual scenario that they find themselves in feels very Bojack Horseman. Todd and Bojack are up to some shenanigans, you know?
Right.
Like, so I'm excited for that one.
Here, I'll give you a trivia from IMDb.
Oh, okay.
Todd reveals that he once narrated a Mazda commercial. The voice actor behind Todd, Aaron Paul, actually narrated several Mazda commercials.
Oh, that's funny.
There's a little trivia for you.
Thank you. Thank you for the trivia, Mike. I was stretching, so that was.
And I was stretching that into content. All right, everybody.
You're really trying to hit that 5-minute mark.
Thank you for listening and watching. We love you. We'll be back next time with Love and or Marriage, episode 5 of season 3. And that's it for us. Go watch Bojack. Bye, everybody.
Suck a dick, dumb shits.
Bye-bye.